A salesperson starts the negotiation at $10,000. Suddenly, $8,000 seems like an incredible steal, right? You feel a sense of victory, even if you know the item is worth $6,000. That gut feeling, it's not just good deal-making instinct. It's a powerful, predictable glitch in your brain called the anchoring effect. At its core, the anchoring effect is our overwhelming tendency to rely too heavily on the first piece of information presented, that initial number, when making subsequent judgments, even when that first number is completely irrelevant to the actual value. Think of it like setting a mental baseline, an anchor point, before you even start swimming across a pool. Everything you do after that initial contact is measured relative to where that anchor was dropped. Our brains are energy savers. They don't want to calculate everything from scratch every single time. When faced with too much data, they latch onto the first salient piece of data they encounter, the anchor, and use it as a convenient, though often misleading, reference point. Instead of evaluating a salary offer, for example, based purely on market rates, your brain subconsciously brackets the negotiation between the first number mentioned and a reasonable upper limit, completely ignoring the true value spectrum. This isn't about being gullible, it's about how our pattern recognition systems are wired. The anchor narrows the perceived range of acceptable values. If the initial anchor is artificially high, it pulls your entire perceived negotiation zone upward. If the anchor is artificially low, it pulls everything downward. You aren't adjusting your judgment based on objective reality. You are adjusting it based on the initial reference point provided. Consider the world of housing. A seller lists a house at a wildly inflated price, say $5 million for a modest suburban home. Even if you know the neighborhood average is $3 million, that initial $5 million figure becomes the psychological ceiling. When you negotiate down to $3.5 million, it feels like a massive win, because your brain has already mentally accepted that the house could be worth that much, thanks to the initial anchor. The $5 million wasn't a reflection of value, it was a psychological starting point. It's also rampant in salary discussions. If a recruiter asks you about your previous salary, that number, no matter how high or low, immediately anchors the entire compensation discussion. Even if the role has evolved to require vastly different skills and market rates, your initial figure sets the perceived starting point for the entire offer structure. You are negotiating not for the job's worth, but for the value relative to the number you just uttered. This effect isn't limited to money. It can apply to everything from medical diagnoses to product pricing. If a doctor mentions a highly specialized, expensive procedure first, subsequent, slightly less expensive treatments might seem vastly more reasonable, even if they are perfectly adequate on their own. The first, dramatic piece of information sets the scale of what is considered normal or acceptable within that conversation. Understanding this bias is the first step toward mastering your own decision-making process. It requires you to build mental friction, to actively disrupt the automatic anchoring response. When you feel that immediate, "oh, that seems fair" feeling after hearing a number, pause. Don't accept it instantly. Force yourself to calculate the value independently, without reference to that initial figure. Next time you hear a number, whether it's a price tag, a suggested timeline, or an initial estimate, I want you to pause and ask yourself a crucial question. Is this the real starting point, or is it just an anchor? Recognizing the anchor is your shield against subtle manipulation and flawed judgment. It's about reclaiming your objective baseline. Stay curious, and keep challenging those first impressions.